Showtime.
And we are live. What's going on, everyone?
Hey, everybody.
Welcome
Appreciate y'all.
to day 3. Oh, I'm sorry, Kevin.
No, I say appreciate y'all jumping on today.
I'm just going to make sure we're good on Facebook real quick. Can you guys see it on Facebook? If you don't mind commenting in the chat really quick. Just want to make sure all the streams are good. What's up, Spaz? Welcome to day 3. Today we got something really good for you guys. We're going to dive in. Kevin's going to walk you guys through how to record vocals. And I've seen the video and it's super dope. There's a bunch of gems in there that you guys are gonna walk away today with. Okay, it's live on both. Okay, cool. So this is day 3. Welcome back. Have you guys been doing your homework? You guys been, recreating the template and everything? Practicing your routing?
Yeah, remember, all the stuff that we're going to be going over these 5 days are kind of like right there in those videos, in those templates, and they should be able to be replayed, I believe, for 2 days, right, Maddox?
Yeah, 48 hours. So if you guys haven't studied and watched the videos again, the replays, you have 48 hours until the video's taken down. Unless you're VIP, then you have access to the replays and the Q&As at the end. And if you haven't already, you can register to become VIP so you can have access to all the replays at challenge.myaudioacademy.com/VIP. You can go there, sign up for VIP, and you'll have the session files, the replays, the Q&A replays, the PDF, and all that stuff.
And that's lifetime access to those?
Yeah, for lifetime access.
Okay. And for anybody else, it's been really cool. What we do after all these calls is we do like a VIP kind of Q&A call where we really kind of do a deep dive on some of the questions you all might have, because there's so many people asking questions in here. You may not get, we may not get to everybody. So that's a good time if you really want some more knowledge or want to go in depth about kind of anything that we're covering, or even a little bit more. We kind of branch off into that. It's a huge benefit of the VIP. So you have access to us on those Q&As.
Yes, sir. So, yeah, if you want to go ahead and I guess we can get started. We have some people in here.
Okay.
So today for the live recording, we have a video that we're going to show you guys. And if you guys have questions throughout the video, feel free to drop the comment and, we'll take our time and pause the video and answer all the questions as best as we can.
Yeah. So this is a session that I did with an artist out of Rock Nation. His name is Ruben Vincent. He's actually from my hometown, Charlotte, North Carolina, where I have a studio there. And he came in and he tracked. One thing I want to say about it is he's definitely like a lyrical rapper, like a spitter. And this is a good example of like what happens when you're prepared. So he made the beat himself. He wrote it himself. There's lots of different ways to record, right? So you may have an artist that's punching every line and trying to figure it out on the spot. Like that's kind of tedious, but it happens. This is someone who knows what they want to spit, how they want to spit, and he delivers it. There may be times when people want to do like dubs or emphasis on the lines, end of lines, or ad libs. We can talk about that too, but this is just a prime example of a really smooth, well-run, studio session with a good artist. So we also did this, like we talked about. We'll talk about in the video, but on a $130 interface, and we got a used SM7B, I think, for like $240.
Yeah.
So like this is not out of reach for anybody.
And it sounded really good too.
Yeah. So anything else you want to go over before we run this video, Maddox?
I don't think so. Yeah, I think we're good to run it.
Okay. So I will pause this sporadically through if there's something that I need to explain a little bit more about, but it's really just kind of just a session that we did, just a normal session. So it was a lot easier for us to make sure that the quality was controlled if we did a recording on it, as opposed to doing it live. But it still has a live feel to it. So it was quick. I don't know, maybe lasted 45 minutes altogether. It's a 30-minute video. So if that tells you anything.
Yeah, we'll be here with you guys. So
cool. All right, well, I'm going to pop this on here, and then, yeah, you guys enjoy. What's up, everybody? I know you've just been watching me live, but we're over here at Safe and Sound Studios in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we're going to be recording my buddy Ruben Vincent today. I'm just swapping out the mic. We're going to use the SM7B today. Fun fact, the SM7 is the microphone that Michael Jackson used on Thriller, which is just an earlier version of this. Brand new, I think you can get them for about $400. You can catch them used a little over $200, but really any microphone will work as long as your acoustic environment is set up properly. Just make sure that the microphone cable is plugged in properly and secure. You need to make sure that the mic itself is secure. And then we have a stand. So if you're using just like a double brace stand, you know, that just kind of has 2 poles on it, just make sure it's the right height. That's okay. If you're using a boom stand, make sure if you're extending the boom arm that it's stable. Another thing is we want to wrap this mic cable around the actual stand, and the idea is so that there's not just like a random loose cable that you can trip over. So it kind of keeps things a little bit neater, nice and tidy. Here we have a little chair that the artist can use if they prefer to sit down, which is perfectly fine. Just make sure that, you know, your shoulders are back and your chin is up. Standing up usually keeps people from slouching too much, which can cut off your wind supply. Another thing to think of is microphone placement. Here we're going to go with a direct signal, which Ruben is a little shorter than me, but I'm going to have him direct into the diaphragm. Just one second, I'm going to grab another microphone. If you are using a front address condenser microphone, right? So this is the front address, and this would be top address. It would be like if we were recording here, this would be top address. Certain dynamic microphones are top address, the SM7B, SM57, SM58, things like that. But here, if you're using it like this, it's the same concept. The diaphragm's here. The easiest way to record this is if your vocals are going directly into the diaphragm. What we can do, say you have a warmer voice and you want it to be a little brighter. Well, you can record at a lower position, but make sure that the diaphragm is aiming up to where your voice is going, so that your voice is catching it here about at this point. If you need it to be a little warmer, you can put the mic up and record down. You really have to use your ears on this. So if you're recording this yourself, you can try it in different positions. If you feel like you're losing clarity, you maybe need to adjust it or go back to just a direct type of recording. But the idea behind it is that frequencies can bounce off the roof of your mouth and go down. Therefore, this will make it a little bit brighter. And the same concept, because those higher frequencies are going down, this makes it a little bit warmer. It just depends on your voice. There's a million different ways to do it. These 3 miking methods for a vocal are probably the most useful and most used that you're going to come across. If you don't have a windscreen on the microphone like we have with the SM7B, you're going to want to use a pop filter. This helps protect against like hard P's and T's. Percussive words, we call them plosives, but B's, that can make the signal clip at the mic. So it's important to have one of these. And what you want to do is they just go simply between the microphone and your mouth. And if you're having an issue, say you're recording someone, maybe not yourself, and they're getting too close on the microphone, use the pop filter as a way to keep them off that microphone. If they do get too close, maybe it sounds good on the right person, but the majority of the time it's going to be something that you're working against and you're trying to EQ out. Lastly, you're going to need a pair of headphones. You can use any headphones you like. And just real quick on that one, the sound that you will get if you do get too close is like a low end buildup, like a low mid buildup. So it'll be more, you know, you'll be bassier in your voice. It's called the proximity effect. We talk about it a little bit later on in there. And then I see a quick question, which is a great question. I want to know how to record in the same room with studio monitors. Your best bet is headphones. You know, everybody put headphones on.
That's
Leave the
new
monitors
trend.
off.
Everybody's
Yeah.
recording in the control room now.
Yeah, and it looks cool, but the thing is, you know, you could do something like if you had a speaker in mono and put it directly into like a dead spot on the behind the mic if it's in cardioid, you could do that. But it would still come out better is if you guys both wore headphones. So that's typically the way it works. Excuse me, when somebody works within, you know, in the studio next to the engineer, which is a very, you know, typical thing now.
Mm-hmm.
And Maddox, you may have some input on this, but is it just people don't like to be by themselves anymore?
I'm not sure. I guess like usually like, you know, when they're in the room, they're just vibing out with everybody that's in the room, because when they're in the studio, you know, it's not just them, it's the whole entourage. So maybe they're just trying to catch a vibe, you know, and if they're in the booth by themselves, they can't get that same feeling. Maybe.
So it's just more collaborative.
I think so.
Cool. Or they might be claustrophobic. You know, you never know.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever gets the best results. But like I said, there are ways to do it if you turn the speaker down real low and then maybe have it directly behind the microphone. Like if you're in cardioid, there's going to be a dead spot in the back. But I would still recommend. Thanks, Jordan. Jordan likes to record next to me, but I would still recommend headphones if you're going to be in the same room, like at least in the control room.
Can you tell them what mic pattern the Shure is?
The Shure, I believe the SM7B is a cardioid.
Okay.
But you know what? That's a good question. I don't know. I can look that up while we play this. But I would guess that is a cardioid. Most address, well, that's true. It can be like a cardioid or like a super cardioid. A lot of times they're not typically like figure eights, but just because of the way they're made. But I'll look up while we run this, and then I'll have something for you. So I'm gonna keep this going.
Yeah, it's a solid mic though. So if you guys, looking to grab a mic, the Shure SM7B, this thing right here.
And if anybody wants to know like what an SM7B like in context would sound like, besides in this video, there's an artist that I mixed an album for, HD Bendope. He's also signed to Rock Nation, but he's a really good rapper out of Brooklyn. But he has an album, Broken Dream. It was the album for the most recent project, but that was recorded all on the SM7B as well. So, but yeah, I mean, a lot of people use it. It's a great sounding microphone, especially for the price. We cool to jump back in this?
Yeah, let's keep it rolling.
All right.
You can use any headphones you like. It is important that they sound pretty good. That way the artist can kind of be immersed in the sound and you really catch a vibe. They have different types. So you have closed back and you have open back if we're talking about studio headphones. These are a closed back design. And what they do is they go completely over your ear and don't let air in or out. And the idea behind that is while we're listening to the music, if you have closed back, you're less likely to get bleed out of the headphones, right? So remember, microphones are like ears. So if we can hear it, then the microphone will pick it up. If you have the option to use closed back or open back in a recording environment, it's probably best to use a closed back. But if you're mixing and bleed through is not an issue, open back headphones are going to be a little bit easier on the ear. They're going to be less fatiguing. That's just completely up to you, but in this case, we're using the closed back in here, and then me controlling the laptop in the front, I'm using open back. So I'm coming out of a vocal booth. Vocal booths aren't always an option. We may not have them in our house. We may not have them in the studio that we're in, and you see a lot of people now recording in just the control room, which is completely fine. You need to make sure that you're aware of your acoustic environment. So the order of importance goes performance, right? So we can never overlook a great performance. It can be not a great equipment, it can be not great acoustics, and if it's just a killer performance, you may still have a chance. But after you do a good performance, the next thing is acoustics. We don't ever know what our equipment sounds like until we have a proper recording in an acoustically treated environment. Well, like I said, it's not always an option to have an ISO booth. So what you can do is you could use simple things like really heavy blankets, or you could get things like mineral wool, which is compressed fiberboard essentially, and they come in 8 to 10 pound sheets. You can have them in your room, but that's what they look like on the inside. And whenever you put your ear up to them, you'll notice that it absorbs all the reflections. These handle to about 400 hertz, which is going to be good for vocals. If that's an option, you can make some of these if you're handy. If not, if you're just trying to get in the game quick, I mean, I've seen people record under blankets. If it's a must, you can put some blankets around you. Some people have vocal shields. I don't always recommend those because one thing that people don't understand about microphones is, especially in a cardioid pattern, they don't pick up on the back. So we're using a shield around the area that's not being picked up. So if you focus on the environment behind you, you're more than likely going to get a good sound. Just use your ears. So if you're in a situation and you can hear the walls and hear the room, assume that the microphone can hear it. What we wanted to do was to show you all that you can use entry-level equipment and get a great sound. Really getting a good recording, having a good performance is what matters the most. Hopefully this comes through on this video where we can all hear it. So let's go over some of the things that we used. We used the UAD, the Volt 1. This is under 200 bucks. It has one input. It can also do instruments. So if you play guitar or bass, you can record that. It has monitor outs that can go to a set of speakers if you have those. And the good thing is it's USB powered. So you're not going to have a bunch of cords that are getting in the way. Here, what we did was I used a headphone splitter so that I could listen on the headphones and that the artist could listen on the headphones. Very cheap, both 1/4 inch inputs. So this is going to the headphones in the booth, and this is going to my headphones right here. Also, when we talked about closed back and open back, these are a pair of open back headphones, the Beyerdynamic DT770 Pros. They work great, but I've also got gold and platinum records with $50 headphones. So just being able to hear something and being able to make the adjustments that you need. Like we said, we're using the SM7B, and so that's a dynamic microphone. So the thing about dynamic microphones is they don't require phantom power. If you do have a condenser microphone, you'll need to push this plus 48 volt on the front right here. And what that does is that activates your microphone. The next, what we decided to use here is called a cloud lifter. And because we're using a dynamic microphone, what the cloud lifter does is it allows us to have more gain. It adds 25 decibels of clean gain to the microphone. And all that does is if there's any noise in the line or any noise in the equipment, we have to turn the gain up more to get it to a nominal level for recording. That noise floor comes up with it. So if you are having issues using a dynamic microphone and there's a lot of noise in the line, you can try one of these. It may not be necessary, but it's never a bad idea. This is the 4-channel cloud lifter, but they sell single channel cloud lifters. If you are using the cloud lifter, you'll need the plus 48 volts. If you're not using a cloud lifter and you have a dynamic microphone, you won't need the 48 volts. And if you do have a condenser microphone, don't worry about the cloud lifter, you don't need it. Let's take a look at the session template. We're also going to talk about how to bring a beat in, how to find the right level, how to find the tempo. For right now, I'm just going to show you the layout. Maddox already went over the plugins and some of the things we'll be using for this session. I'll explain why it is that way when we use it for recording. At the top here, we have the effects, just your reverbs and delays, then the mix bus, then the vocal bus where all the vocals are going to, also our record track. From the record track, as we record it in, we'll drag these down to the appropriate audio tracks. I like to set the template up like this because I can separate the beat from the vocals. If the beat's on one side of the session, in this case being the upper part of it, it makes it easier to pinpoint, and then the vocals are on the lower part of the session, so on the audio tracks at the bottom. That way I know if I need to work on the instrumental or the 2-track, I scroll all the way up. If I need to work on the vocals, I scroll all the way down. Organization is key when you're doing recording sessions, just to be able to move around a little bit more efficiently. So let's go ahead and pull our beat in. So File, Import, Audio. And what pops up right here is a screen that when we click on the audio, so we can convert MP3s, you can convert waves, we can also convert M4As if you need, but more than likely it's going to be a wave or an MP3. You're going to get the option to add or convert. I recommend convert. Another option, if you're in the correct sample rate or the same sample rate, it will be copy. So I always recommend to do convert or copy. It'll be in the same position. If you do have the option to add, I typically avoid that because it leaves the audio file in its original folder and doesn't get transferred to the audio file's full folder. So if you ever do need to send a session off and you don't do a save copy in of it, the regions with the audio files where they're being pulled from or that are being pulled from another drive will come out as gray and you won't have access to them. So it's always a good idea to copy, or if convert is the option, that's going to be the only option. So here we're going to hit convert. Send it to your audio files folder, new track. If you put it in clip list, it goes to the side. You have to pull it back out. So just use new track. All right. Came in here. So let's pull it up to the top. Now the beat says 160 BPM. We're going to trust that to begin with, but sometimes they may be wrong. It could say it's 160 BPM. If you're using auto-tune, it might say it's in a certain key. And you try that and it's not accurate. So it's always good to go back and check. But for now, we're going to use it. So up here, we're going to put the tempo in. And another thing to notice is the level of the beat. So it looks like it's already a mastered level. What we need to make sure is that it's not too loud. So we need to bring it in at a good level. A good rule of thumb to start out, most people are going to semi-master their beats. They're going to want it to be a loud volume. So bringing it back 10 dB is a good starting point. Another thing that we can do is if you are using metering plugins, especially if you're using the Waves demo right now.
So I did want to answer, this was a really good question that somebody just asked. Does it make a difference if you just drag a file in the session versus importing? Yes. So if you just drag a file into the session and it is in the same sample rate as the session, it will leave it where it originally is. All right. So if you want to import it so that you have the option to make a new copy of that audio file. What happens if you don't have a copy of the audio file in the audio files folder is that it just pulls from the original location on your computer. And like we said, if you're not doing a save copy in, if you're just moving sessions around, you could lose these files, especially if they're not on the same drive that you moved the session file to. So,
yeah, and I feel like, you know, if you have it on your desktop or something, and then you forget that you're using that beat or something, you delete and clear your desktop, then that file is gone.
100%, or your downloads folder, you purge your downloads folder, it's gone forever. So
yeah,
that's, even though, you know, technically, yes, you can absolutely drag something in, but that's why we would recommend importing it versus just dragging a file. All right.
There should be a VU meter that you have access to. And I like to offset this down to 15. And that's going to give you like a little bit more accurate. So 0 VU is about -20 RMS. If you get it around there, you're kind of in a good range energy-wise. And make sure you route your beat to the mix bus as well. So we brought it down 11 dB. The last thing that you want to do is just to check to make sure that your tempo is correct. So if you go to track and create a click track, if you have a number pad, you can toggle this with 7 on the number pad. Okay, 7 turns it on and off. And then if we notice that the clicks seem like they're in time, but they're a little bit ahead of the beat, so we can look and see if there's any dead space at the beginning, which there is. So we'll take this, we'll get it, we'll bring it back to the beginning. The only other thing you want to do is you want to check at the end of the track too. So like maybe check the middle to make sure your tempo is still on. And then check at the end. Sometimes producers will use like decimal point tempos. So it might be like 160.4. And then over time, that will get off if it feels like it's right at the beginning. That's why we check at different parts of the song. That sounded good. So we can hide this if we'd like. So it's not in our way. And the last thing that I wanted to mention is that I like to use relative grid. So where it says grid right here, we can switch that to relative grid. And I like to grid to a bar when I'm recording. And what that does is that allows me to make big jumps. So as we're going, I might be able to like move here, you know, and then, oh, we'll go to the hook part, you know, before I have markers. We may have markers in there and I can move here. Now, if it's in grid mode, say we have a region, it's going to always snap to the bar. But say it comes in a little bit early, right? Say there's a pickup into the verse. In relative grid mode, if it's a hook or something we want to copy and paste and move over, it will still move, but relative to its starting position to the grid. So in relative mode, if we copy it, there's still going to be this tail at the beginning. But if it was in normal grid mode and we copied it, it would want to snap it directly to the line. So it's a very useful function when you're trying to move vocals around. It also works in grid mode too. So to me, it's just better to leave it in relative grid, but it's completely up to you. Next, we're going to jump into how we're actually going to track the record. It looks like Ruben just got here, so we're going to get everything set up for him to record.
What's up, bro?
Good.
Yeah, man, it's good to see you.
Likewise.
Yeah, man, appreciate you coming.
Thanks, bro. Yo, what's going down, man? It's your boy Ruben Vincent, 704's finest. Jamla Records, Rock Nation, and Thorough World. You know we here. My guy Kev, beat produced by me, written by me, of course. And you know, new music is on the way. Love is War is out now. Humble Beast is out now. I just dropped a video for Levi Jeans. And yeah, we working. You see where we at. My Instagram is Ruben Vincent. That's REUBENVINCENT. And my Twitter is the same thing with an underscore.
Let's get it. I'm gonna take Ruben in the booth. We're gonna get him set up, make sure his mic height's right, make sure he has his headphones. So we'll walk through how to do that. Notice the height of the mic is going to be right at where his voice is. So I tried to make adjustments on what height I think he was. I was pretty close. So where he's at right now, the only problem is that it might cause a little bit of low end buildup from proximity effect. So if you could like maybe just a few inches off, perfect. So just like that. Same thing if you have a condenser microphone that's front addressed, you can use a pop filter to give you that 6 inches, but that's about your distance, 2 fists as well. Super simple, and just make sure you keep the microphone between your ears.
What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to let the beat run, and I'm going to get Ruben's vocals. What I'm looking for is just a nice medium loud, giving him room for peaks. We're not using a compressor or anything like that. So we're just...
One thing too is, if you notice, the record track is muted. So on the UAD, using UAD interfaces, they have something called a console. And the console allows you to monitor before Pro Tools, okay? And we talked about this a little bit, I think, on the first day. But it's like a 0 latency option. It's under low latency monitoring. So that's what I was using. But if your interface does not have that option, you will need to unmute the record track. But even with low latency monitoring, you won't hear it. But what happens is if I'm playing it back and I need to like place these somewhere, it will play if it's not muted. And sometimes I don't want that, so I just keep it muted. But like I said, if you're not using a UAD console or anything like that, or UAD interface, then you will want to leave that recording track unmuted so that you can hear from it.
So we're just adjusting the gain where it's kind of like green into the yellow. If we do the gain staging right on our beat, then the volume of the vocals should fit in at the right level, and we don't have to go too loud to make the vocals blend. But if we need to adjust the beat a little bit, that's fine too. Go ahead and go through it, Ruben.
Yeah. 1, 2, 2. Yeah. Hey, hey, yeah. I feel like a black guy, or better yet, rap guy. I came from them back roads. Get baptized. Niggas get crucified. Your day ones across you. When you gone, they gon' eulogize. Since rags, I've been a soldier, I'm juvenile. Riding through the town in the Coupe de Ville. Looking out for the devil. I won't shoot, but my shooters will.
Okay, so now that I have his levels, we're gonna go through and I'm gonna have him spit it all the way through. Hey, yo, I just had to get your levels real quick. So you're just spitting, right? You don't need auto-tune? No. Okay, cool. All right, here we go. We're using 3.
And we didn't have a talkback microphone on the entry level option on that interface. So like we did have to holler in there. But if you have a control room, a monitor control room matrix, or anything like who makes them, like a D-Box or a Drummer, or what are some of those other ones? A Big Knob. So if anybody has a Big Knob or a I had another one. It's like silver and blue. I had one in there. I forgot what it's called. But a speaker selector, they usually have a talkback option as well. But it's okay. It's all right as long as you can get the message across to the people.
Here we go. We're using 3 on the number pad to record. You can also hit record here. And if you right click on this, you have a normal, loop, destructive, and quick punch. When you're tracking vocals, you want to use it on quick punch.
Yeah. 1, 2, 2. Yeah. Hey, hey, yeah. I feel like a black guy, or better yet, rap guy. I came from them back roads. Get baptized. niggas get crucified. Your day ones across you, when you gone, they gon' eulogize. Since rags, I've been a soldier, I'm juvenile. Riding through the town in the Coupe de Ville, looking out for the devil. I won't shoot, but my shooters will. I'm paranoid and pray I don't go back to them struggle meals. These rappers got struggle deals, they struggle to fucking build. Banana clips bust I peel, and God we trust. That's just a phrase on a bunch of bills. The cash is another thrill. The power of the dollar make a man murder. Let's get in between the bread like a hamburger. Came a long way from dollar menus to packed out venues just to get to this stage. There's so much that I had went through. Blinded by my own scars, just trying to get a clear view. Staring at the world through my rear view. It's like
All right. So he nailed it. And what we would do now is we take it from the recording track and we pull it down. If they did need to punch, we would leave that in to the point where they needed to punch, and then we would come over top and as he's spitting, hit 3 again or hit the quick punch button and punch him in. This is an ideal scenario, an ideal situation where the artist is prepared. So if you're the artist, make sure you're prepared because you're going to be delivering it the best you possibly can. And it makes it a lot easier on the engineering and on the mixing side. So with this one, he just kept it a lead, right? So we didn't do any ins and outs. We didn't do any stacks, no ad libs. And sometimes if you kill the lead, it just can be as simple as that. It doesn't need to be more. You know, when we develop our ear, that's what we're looking for, is just quality. So if we get that in the lead, we don't need to add anything extra. So since we're not actually mixing it right now on this day, we are going to do just a few tweaks to make sure that it's contained and we get a good idea of how it's supposed to sound. That way, you know, we don't get 2 or 3 days into it or in the mixing stage of this and we're like, oh, I don't like the way this sounds.
So before we jump into the mixing part, there's a good question of what's your go-to peak level when recording in? All right, so if you notice while this was tracking, it was kind of in the green, but it was going up into that lighter green. It used to be yellow. I call it yellow, but like between the green and yellow. Ideally, if you set the beat level properly, gain staging wise, around that 0 VU, then when you track the vocals in, they should be in the right level, which is right in between that green and that yellow.
So a little bit more than halfway usually on the meter.
Yeah, just a little bit more than halfway. And, you know, 2 reasons for that is one, noise floor, right? So if we record things low, they have to be brought up to, you know, fit into the track and be mixed. And whatever noise is there gets brought up with it, right? So we don't want to have to deal with that, as well as if you are using any type of outboard gear, there are sweet spots. So things like tube preamplifiers or transformer-based preamplifiers, things like the 1073 or tube-based things like Avalon, you know, they have this sweet spot in them, which is usually right around in that range as well. So it's a good idea to be just a little bit over halfway with that. Now, if you're doing some like on-site recording of like an orchestra or a jazz band, you probably want to go lower because you don't know what they're going to do. But as long as you have an artist that's controlled, you can usually bring them in about that level and don't have to go lower. I wouldn't recommend going too much hotter though, just because, especially without a compressor, you risk clipping. And if it does clip, you know, you can't unclip it. And that's the biggest problem. So like when we're tracking things in, we don't want to do too much. We don't want to do too much compression. We really don't want to do too EQing if we have that option, because we can always do it later. So we don't want to mess anything up, especially when you have a really good take, right? Because performance is most important. So we just need to capture that. And for the person that said that they have an Avalon, yeah, the Avalon is really, it's a really great sounding mic. It's a channel strip, essentially, assuming that you have the 737. But it's a really great channel strip. It sounds great. And so what you can do, especially, you know, when starting out, is maybe bypass the EQ and the compression section, right? And then leave your output on 0 and then find a good location, on the input. Yeah. Okay. So 737. Yeah. So find one and you'll hear it, you know, when those tubes really start to saturate a little bit, and you know, where it sounds good. You probably know what I'm talking about. You've used it before. But really do some testing on it to figure out what the best level is, and then you can back it off and be in that range with the output. So, but not to dive too deep into analog gear, we're going to keep this moving on to the mixing section. It looks like Prizzy just hopped on.
Yep.
What up,
Yo,
bro?
What's up, everybody?
not much, man. We're just about to run into the scratch mix part of it.
Yeah, man.
Prizzy really went in on the mix on this too, which is super awesome. But yeah, you're doing good.
Sure. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Just enjoying this master class.
Awesome. And real quick, maybe you have some insight on this. We were talking about like recording levels. So like, you know, why we kind of record at like a medium, little bit over medium level.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I love getting sessions, and I'm sure, Kev, you do as well, where there's some room, and we like to call it headroom. Headroom is just creative space to make the drums louder, make the vocals louder, make everything bigger, but in such a creative and tasteful way with the fine-tooth comb, pretty much. So when you're driving your vocals into your compressor or your preamp, that level to me is money. You're golden. It's going to sound great. It's going to be dynamic. You can compress. You can do all these different things, and it just works.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, that's a good point too. You know, like when we get it as mixers, like, you know, when it's like super low, you're kind of like, I don't know, or if it's too loud, and it's a great take, but they start clipping on certain parts. There's not much, you know, there's not much you can do.
Yeah.
And one more, just to touch on this, do you use any processing while monitoring through console? I do. I like to do that. I like to use compression. I'll never be a huge fan of EQing on the way in, except for maybe like a high pass filter. But as far as the compression goes, I do. And then if I'm using like the Unison pre, so if for anybody that's not using Universal Audio, they have these preamp emulations that do something that mimics sort of like your ohm load, and so it kind of has a little bit different texture, I feel like, in console. So I do like to use it in console, but technically you can just do the same thing once you get into Pro Tools. It's completely up to you. So
Kevin, so when you're using the console, you know how you were talking about peaking in Pro Tools and having it clip. So if you have a compressor in the console, can you avoid that? And
yeah, so that can help. Yeah, 100%. So that can help because, you know, there's a difference between peaking digitally and peaking in the analog world. So if you're peaking at a microphone, it's always going to be peaked. Or if you have like an outboard preamp, you can peak that on the way in and then turn the output down, and the levels will look good. So, you know, we have to use our ears on it. But once you kind of get in the digital realm, once you get into console for UAD, then you shouldn't really have a problem of being able to turn something down if it is peaking in there. But it is something to watch, you know. But if you're peaking up the input of a compressor, you're probably doing like 20 dB on it, which is already going to sound crazy coming in. So, you know, just keep it smooth, you know, 3 to 5 dB on the way in. Someone says they go to the 73 and 2.8. That's a great combination. A typical pro combination is a Neve 1073 into a CL1B. You're going to see that almost more times than any on anything R&B, hip hop, even pop. 1176 is a great option, and the LA2A, and they each have a little bit different characteristics. I think the CL1B is the best of both worlds for those. So, yeah, but I don't want to dive too deep into that. But yeah, you can, like I said, a compressor will just help a little bit to catch those peaks and smooth it out prior. But we'll talk about it in this next section.
So I'm going to add a little bit of light compression, a little bit of light EQ, and a little bit of effects just to kind of put it in pocket. So first things first, I like to add a de-esser at the beginning. It just catches any of the little random S's. When it jumps forward, you'll see where it reduces, but you don't want to have it like
I feel like a black guy,
taking the whole top off like that.
I came from them back roads, where niggas get baptized, and niggas get crucified. crucified. Your day ones across you when you gone, they gon' eulogize. Since rags, I've been a soldier, I'm Jew.
Right? Very simple. The next we're putting in line is we're not using a compressor, an outboard compressor, right? So we're just using our basic interface, a basic microphone. So there will be some peaks, and we can see it in our audio signal here. One of the things that we try to do with this first compressor is make it act how a compressor in the studio would be. Let's get this back. There we go. And the idea is to just take off some of the top here where these peaks are, just so we can control it a little better. So I have a 3-to-1 ratio and attack at 4 milliseconds. So it's pretty fast, not the fastest it could be. And then a release at 250. I may adjust these just a little bit, but remember, if it's like singing and more legato, you can make a longer release. If it's rapping, you probably want a little shorter release. You just have to do how it feels. Shorter release puts it more in your face. Longer release contains it more. So we're going to adjust the threshold, and we're going to try to do a few dB, really whatever feels good. I wouldn't get stuck on a number, but maybe start with 3 to 5. If it goes over 5 at certain parts, that's cool.
I feel like a black guy, better yet rap guy. I came from them back roads, where bitches get baptized, bitches get crucified.
So right here, it's telling us how much gain reduction we're getting. And one thing we're going to notice is it's going to get quieter, right? Because we're doing 3 to 5 dB gain reduction. We're not allowing it to go that much louder. So we have to make sure we're using makeup gain.
I feel like a black guy, or better yet rap guy. I came from them back roads, where bitches get baptized, and bitches get crucified. Your day ones across you when you gone, they gon' eulogize. Since rags, I've been a soldier, I'm juvenile. Riding through the town in the Coupe de Ville, looking out.
Right? So we just want to control it. We just want to keep it natural. We don't want to go crazy with the compression. Remember, this is just to get a quick level on it. Next, we're going to listen to the EQ. Of course, we don't really need things below 80, but we can listen. You can sometimes roll higher.
I feel like a black guy, or better yet rap guy. I came from them back roads, where bitches get baptized.
So without that low end, we can definitely, it'll start to sound boxy and start to sound thin. So we don't want to get rid of too much of that. Depending on where your booth is and how your booth is set up, or where your recording environment is, even if you don't have a booth, you may have different frequency buildups. So like in the low mids, you might want to dip.
I feel like a black guy, or better yet rap guy. I came from them back roads, where bitches get baptized, and bitches get crucified. Your day ones across you when you gone, they gon' eulogize. Since rags, I've been a soldier, I'm juvenile.
All right. So I just dipped a little bit of that. Nothing crazy. I'm going to add a little bit of brightness to the top end.
I feel like a black guy, or better yet rap guy.
But remember, I'm going to leave this to Prizzy to do the heavy lifting, just so we can get a general idea of where we like it at. The next is the R-Box, and that just kind of gives us a little bit more forward compression.
I feel like a black guy, or better yet rap guy. I came from them back roads, where bitches get baptized, and bitches get crucified. Your day ones across you when you gone, they gon' eulogize. It's rag.
Yep, and then at the end, I'm using the Renaissance de-esser from Waves, and I put the range at -6. I think by default, it's at -16, which I think is a lot, but it just depends on the situation. There's no right or wrong. So I like to start at 6, and the idea is I'm just kind of catching the S's one more time at the end.
I feel like a black guy, or better yet rap guy. I came from them back roads, where bitches get baptized, and bitches get crucified. Your day ones across you when you gone, they gon' eulogize. Since rags, I've been a soldier, I'm juvenile.
Right, so now it's just a nice clean take. What I can add is maybe a little bit of reverb. So I have these reverb settings here, a plate reverb, a chamber, a hall, and a delay. So I'm gonna add a little bit of plate.
I feel like a black guy, or better yet rap guy. I came from them back roads, where bitches get baptized, and bitches get crucified.
I do like to use even increments of 5. So -30 is you're barely going to hear it. -25, maybe a little bit. After -25, once you get up to like -20, -15, it's going to start to feel like an effect. And after that, it's sort of like only the reverb. So I like to keep lower numbers to keep it clean at first, unless we're going for a specific vibe. So with this being more of just lyrical rap, we don't want the reverb and the delays to get in the way or be distracted from what he's saying and how he's delivering it. Right? So we're going to use less of these.
I feel like a black guy, or better yet rap guy. I came from them back roads, where bitches get baptized, and niggas get crucified. Your day ones across you, when you gone, they gon' eulogize. Since rags, I've been a soldier, I'm juvenile. Riding through the town in the Coupe de Ville. Looking out for the devil, I won't shoot, but my shooters will. I'm paranoid and pray I don't go back to them struggle meals. These rappers got struggle deals, they struggle to fucking build.
All right. And so that's just a quick mix, and that's all it takes. If you're doing some vocal stacks, you may want to balance those in with the lead against the lead, but you would process them similarly. Sorry guys. If you are doing background vocals or vocal stacks, you want to process those the same to start out with, especially during this process. And then you want to blend them in volume wise. If you want the backgrounds to be up, hard left, hard right, raise them up. If not, if you want the lead, you need to bring them down. If you want the lead to be the focus, it just always depends. And there's not really a right or wrong. With this being the case, we've got a good lead. It's nice and clean. We're making sure that there's no issues in the recording. So now we're ready to send this off to Prizzy. He's going to kill it on the mix and master. The best way to do this is something we call save copy in. And what this does is this makes sure that all our audio files are copied correctly into the session, and it's the correct version of the session. So we go to File, and then we have a Save Copy In. So normally we have a Save As, Save Copy In. All we have to click here is the audio files button. Sample rate should be the same, bit depth should be the same, and then just the audio files. Click that. It's going to ask us where we want to save it. For this one, it's important to save it somewhere where you can remember. If you have a drive, save it there. For this, we're going to save it on the desktop. We'll go down here to the desktop. And the last thing we need to do is just right click it and compress it. And once it's compressed completely, it'll be ready to send. So your file size on this, in this case, we have one that's the file's 87.6 megabytes, which is pretty small for a session. It can be 500 megabytes, 300 megabytes. It can be up to a gig depending on how big it is. So if you ever run into a situation where you're doing a save copy in and you feel like it might be too large, too small, just remember it's dependent on the session. We're going to load this up into however we transfer this. That can be WeTransfer, Google Drive, Dropbox, and we're going to get it off to Prizzy.
And I would like to say that sometimes my drawl prohibits me from saying certain words. So, like similarly.
Sounded great, bro.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Good job, Kevin.
Hey,
One time for Kev.
one time for the headphones in his ears when you played that.
Yeah,
My bad, bro.
it's all right. Yeah, man, look at it. He's got the same draw. That's right. So there were some good stuff that popped up here. I'm glad you guys liked the video. So are there any additional tips on mixing layered vocals and stacks? Yeah, like I said, this section is about the recording part of it. But one of the big things when we're talking about layered vocal stacks, one is panning, right? So we have to be intentional. And I know this is more of like a vocal producer's role, but as engineers, we end up being the vocal producers a lot of time in these sessions. So if you want a center-focused vocal, right, that means that there's a lead up the middle and then there's stacks on both sides. I would recommend doing things besides the lead up the middle, doing things in pairs or even numbers, right? So if we're doing like a stack of the main, right? Say we do it in, the stacks need to be on the left and on the right, right? So we don't need to do like a dub of the lead on the left and then do like a low harmony on the right, right? So we need to do two one on the left, one on the right. If you're going to do high ones, a high on the left, high on the right. Low, sometimes you can stick up the middle, but still it's a good idea to do two. So a left and right. And then it's just about kind of panning and balancing. What you want to avoid, like I said before, is if you are stacking vocals, you want to avoid doing like a high part, a mid part, and on one on each side, right? Because the way our ears work is we have this cube that we work within, right? Even if we're talking 2D, you've got if it's like a palette, left and right is your panning, but up and down are your frequencies, right? So if you have like a mid stack, like a mid harmony and a high harmony, and that's all you do in a lead, the lead's going to be here, the mid harmony is going to be here, and the high harmony is going to appear here. So there's always going to be like this weird balance thing going on. But if you have two highs, then it's going to be balanced in the highs. Two mid, it's going to be balanced in the mid. Two lows, it's going to be balanced in the lows. If you want it to be wide, if you want it to be big, you can do 4 stacks on something, so even number stacks. But it will take that focus off the center. That's great for hooks sometimes. There's, to be honest with you, and Prizzy, and Maddox as well, we're all mixers. There's going to be differences in how this is done. But I would say for now, like, I'm not really getting a lot of stuff that has, a bunch of stacks. It's very lead focused. Would you guys agree?
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, even Prizzy, you do a lot of you do a lot of R&B and different stuff like Afrobeat that's more melodic and whatnot. And then even Maddox with the Latin stuff you're doing, like, it's still where they could technically do this. Is it still lead focused?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the lead is
The lead.
yeah, I mean, that's the star of the show, and everything else is kind of crafted around that 9 times out of 10. So,
Got you. Cool.
Unless it's like a girl group and there's like 3 girl singers, then it's more heavy on the harmonies in the background.
yeah, then it's the opposite. Then it's like a chant.
Yeah. So, I guess the engineer answer that you'll get for this is it all depends. But I would say that typically, the lead is the focus, and then everything else is kind of like supporting around it. So that's a couple of different vocal stack techniques you can do. I do, if you do something directly underneath, like say it's like some dubs or like into the line stuff, you can do one of those, but you want to turn it down for the most part. But it's really situational. So yeah, what's another one?
Like Kendrick's vocals, like he has that cool, like layered sounding lead. But it doesn't sound like left and right, does it?
No, it's usually like he's got a low one, but I think there's enough separation between the voicing to where they're not like clashing, because you can run into like phase issues if things are too close together, which can essentially cancel out a sound or double up on a sound, and just make it kind of feel unnatural. And for his, it's like they might pitch it right, so they're using something like Little Altar Boy, and so they might like have a low one underneath it, and that works because there's like enough separation frequency wise, I think.
Yeah. I would say for anybody starting out, if you do get into like the stacks and background game, which is still a thing for sure, like Kev said, whatever you do to the left side, try to do another take to the right side and like kind of counterbalance it. And if it feels really wide in headphones, if you can, check it in mono and see if anything gets like really lost. If that's the case, then you may need to record another take and just pan it straight down the middle just to support everything else.
Yeah. And I think a good rule of thumb too is it's better to have too much than not enough. So if you do have a good relationship with your mixing engineer, or if you are mixing it, it's much better to have the option of having, these multiple stacks that you can move with than to not have them and really need them, because getting the artist back into the studio to do it again might not be an option. Almost always is not an option. Once it gets to the mixing stage. So
just make them record until they lose their voice. That's a pretty good rule of thumb. Record them until they hate you. Get 1 million stacks or 1 million takes, and you're good.
Yeah, and you could do alternate playlists too. And then, how we went through with Jordan and we went through Maddox when we talk about the comment section. You could be like, hey, you could label them like good take 1, good take 2, as long as it's there to use. And so the mixer can just be like, we can make it sound however we want it to sound if we have it, but we can't make something appear out of nowhere, out of thin air.
Yeah, it's a lot harder to recreate or to synthetically create something that doesn't exist.
Yeah. So here's a question. How much gain did you use for the Volt while using the additional 25 dB from the Cloud Lifter? The answer is I have no idea. However much it needed.
Yeah.
We don't ever want to look at a point and be like, oh yeah, I did it at 11 o'clock. That's what it needs. It's like, it depends on how loud he is. It depends on, the output of the SM7B. It was used. We picked it up from Guitar Center that week. So, it was all dusty. I don't know who, so it's really just whatever needed to come in properly.
And that level is usually around a little bit above green on the meter.
Yeah, so it's more important of watching the input meters on Pro Tools because we don't really have an indicator. So like if you're using outboard converters and stuff, there's usually meters that you can check, usually like a digital meter. But since in this case we're just using, the volt, it's a $130 interface, we have to kind of use Pro Tools as our guide. And we're kind of in between that green and yellow.
Yep.
So. And it looks like Brandy does 30 stacks. Or did 30 stacks for Kanye.
She did 30 stacks.
That's crazy.
Whose idea was that?
Probably Kanye's. Or hers, You know how R&B artists are sometimes.
Yeah. Definitely wasn't the engineer's idea.
Yeah.
It's like, please, can I just go home?
Yeah. It's like looking at the clock every time.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. It's really not as complicated as people think it is. I mean, there are things that you can do. If you're doing like gang vocals, there are different positionings you can do on the mic to experiment. So like if you want to sound like 10 different people, record from different distances away from the mic and stack it up, different tones in your voice. But it's usually if you get a nice, clean, direct signal, it can really take you a long way. And, if you want to do stacks, I would recommend doing the stacks directly too. I wouldn't worry about things like off-axis recording, like when you turn the microphone a little bit to try to get a little different texture. It's not a huge thing. I would really, if you get a nice, clean, direct signal, you should be able to do pretty much anything with it.
Yeah. Agreed.
So.
All right, guys, we're coming up a little bit on our time. We have a VIP session after this. We don't want to eat up too much of their time. If you guys have any last questions that you guys want to ask, go ahead and drop them in the comments. And if you're not a VIP member yet, you can also go here and sign up. Challenge at myaudioacademy.com/VIP. Being a VIP member will allow you access to all the replays, to all the VIP Q&A replays, PDF, the sessions, everything you need to practice and become a better engineer. So, with that being said, do we have any last comments?
And today's the last day for that, right? Sign up for VIP.
I would have to double check with Jordan. I think he said something like that. Yeah. So yeah, today would be the last days. So if you haven't, grab that VIP.
But someone just asked in low latency mode, do you have console muted? Yes. You would want to have console muted. And the idea behind that is that you're monitoring off the console before it hits Pro Tools. So you're eliminating any chance for latency. And is the song going to be released soon? No. That is a song that Ruben does every day with his friends. They do freestyles every day. And they just battle each other in a group chat. And so that's something that's probably never going to be released. But if you are a VIP member, you do get access to the stems, the beat, and the vocals to mess around with. So you guys heard it here. And he does have some stuff coming out on the new Puma mixtape that they did with, I believe, Rock Nation. I'm not sure if anybody else is on it, but it's super dope. He let me hear some of the tracks stuff. So if you want to check out the Puma mixtape that's about to drop, he's all over that.
And then I just got a text from Jordan. So every day in the challenge, we've been doing a raffle and giving away a free Waves, plugin subscription.
Yeah, I think the Essential Bundle for a year.
Essential Bundle. And the winner for that is Paul Whitner. Paul,
hey,
you are the winner.
Congratulations, Paul.
Hey,
Congratulations.
can we get the air horn?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Paul, we'll hook you up with the Waves Essential Jordan part. Yeah.
All right, Paul. So cool. Yeah, if you guys are in the VIP, we will switch over to that and hop on that Q&A. And if
Yeah.
not, make sure that you tune in tomorrow. Prizzy has a super awesome presentation, I don't know, for lack of a better term, on the mixing of this. So we did a video for that one as well, right?
Yeah.
Yep,
so-
yep.
Yeah, so it's a super dope video. And yeah, you guys will surely get a lot of stuff out of it.
Yeah, man. Looking forward to it.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in. See you guys tomorrow for day 4 challenge mixed with Prizzy and VIP members.